Welcome to another instalment of the Global Sport in Colour sports magazine show in association with The Voice newspaper. I'm here with Michael Facey, Rodney Hinds, Mann. Mann and Rodney Hinds are here in a slightly different capacity this week. Founders of the Football Blacklist. This is a Football Blacklist special. Both myself and Mike have our own views on the Football Blacklist.
We're the normal guys today.
We're the normal guys. But we're going to be really kind of drilling down into this year's and the next instalment of the celebration. Guys, I wanna start by asking why we're doing it again, because there's going to be some people who are confused about the fact that it was hosted earlier this year, and now we're having it again in November. Who wants to clear that up?
Yeah, I mean, I think traditionally we'd always had the Football Blacklist celebration, or awards as it was previously known, in and around Black History Month, to kind of, show football's contribution as part of the bigger picture there. And basically we had it earlier this year because we had an opportunity to do some work with the Premier League, who became supporters of the Football Blacklist. So we went for it. We got it done. Obviously, it was successful, and our feeling was we just wanted to get it back into that place it had always sat within the calendar, to have that focus. It's awards season anyway, so it's a good time for it to kind of fit in. And it's 2 for 1 almost, isn't it? Having another one in the diary. So we're excited to use the energy, that positive energy, for this next event and push on even further.
You're right, it's 2 for 1, and I'm happy about that. In all honesty, Rodney, I know that you were a little bit surprised and taken aback, as you are. You're quite humble like that, with the love that it received and the way it was attended and supported by the black community and the wider community. To be quite honest with you, not just the black community. Talk to me about why you were so surprised and how you received that love.
Because obviously we'd had a couple of sort of presentation nights in the past at various venues, and they were nice, they were good networking opportunities, but we'd never had Premier League support, and you never know how people are going to view that. And while I was surprised, it wasn't any sort of trepidation. It was just the fact that, after all the hard work, phone calls and scenarios and meetings, that everybody, to a man, woman, etc., seemed to leave that venue in March really happy. And these were people that weren't necessarily award winners as such, but people that could at last meet some of the contacts in football that they'd heard about or just been emailing for years. And there was, really good networking opportunities. And at the end of the day, all you ever want is that you put on an event whereby people can say, you know what, when's the next one? And that's what I think we had. I was in the media area for most of the evening doing bits and pieces, but as people were leaving or as people were networking, you could feel the buzz and excitement. And the FBL celebration is unique. And I think I might have mentioned it on the night itself. It's the only chance the football family, our football family, the wider football family, has of getting together. So, it was just really nice to be part of something that was so positive, and the energy was great.
Mike, you're normally working at events like that. It was a rare night off for you. You've been to previous events like that, loads of awards this year. Where did that rank for you?
Do you know what I was gonna say? Like I've been privy to see the journey of the Football Blacklist grow from spots in Wembley and just grow to where it is now. And for me, like Rodney said, that one in March was the best one, was the biggest one, felt so special. And in that room, there was just great energy of people that were just happy to be there. And what actually done it more so personally for me was I've seen my mum work, and she was an award winner, and she does a lot of grassroots stuff with Kicks and Arsenal, and just seeing.
No nepotism, by the way. That was a genuine award.
That was a genuine award.
we didn't even know.
That's right. There was a panel.
No, exactly. Because I come into the office and it was like, wait, my mum's being nominated. He was like, yeah. And I was like, wow, that's my mum. But
And that, Mike, is what Leon and myself have always wanted to do. That yes, players are sexy, high profile, and that's fantastic, and they're doing a great job. But it's also those at grassroots who would generally just be doing what they're doing. How long has your mum been doing what she's doing?
About
Exactly.
all my life.
Recognition. That's what it's all about.
And that's what it was. Just from grassroots all the way up to that professional game and back down. And spot on.
Leon, I know you've written in The Voice this week. You've been challenged by professional footballers, former professional footballers, you haven't quite told us who it is, about why the football blacklist is celebrating anything as if there is nothing to celebrate. I thought you articulated it quite well in the paper this week. Just kind of revisit, why the football blacklist is relevant and needed.
Well, this week I've written about the fact that a former player who's very well respected, who I have a great relationship with, sent me a very direct email in response to an invitation saying, well, hang on, what are we celebrating? No chief executives, no chairman, 4 black managers across 92 clubs. What are we celebrating? This isn't a situation where you would normally celebrate, would you? And it's a valid point. I think it's important to say that, and I say that in the column. It is a very good point that was made. But for me, it kind of makes the football blacklist celebration more than a back-patting exercise because of the context that's offered here. Because what we're doing is we're raising those people who are underrepresented up. They are our shining lights. We need to celebrate these people and make them more visible, and also hear their stories, get their advice. How do you become, Chris Hughton? How do you become, any of those people working in the community, doing those things, and how do you then help the next generation believe that they can go on to succeed? Because from my personal experience, going on to work in the sports media, when I was watching TV, 80s, 90s, I just assumed any black person I saw working within the sports media had played for sport professionally. And that is a concern, because as soon as I didn't make it as a professional footballer, as a young man, I was like, I've got no chance in the sports media, because that was my assumption. And there was only a very few people who hadn't played sport professionally, as far as I know, like Damien Johnson, Rodney. I haven't played sport professionally. And I think it's important that people know that you don't have to be a professional footballer to be part of this industry. So we need to hold people up. Obviously the situation needs massive improvement, but what better space to bring people together to celebrate the achievements of people and then have those conversations, reflect on where we are, make connections within our communities to see what we can do amongst ourselves, and also make better relationships with the governing bodies of the sport, with the leagues, with the people who have the power in the game to change things. If we don't have that, if we don't have those conversations, then quite frankly, I don't see how we move forward without relying solely on other people who don't have an emotional interest, don't have a vested interest in our community to help us move forward. So we have to we have to push, and sometimes that's uncomfortable. Sometimes it is uncomfortable, and the player who got in contact with me created an uncomfortable conversation that I am creating all the time in my conversations with, the Premier League, with the Football League, with the FA. Those are uncomfortable conversations, but what really shows where we're going to make progress is where people can have an uncomfortable conversation, understand it, go away, think about it, and do something. And the Premier League getting involved in supporting this is one part of that. There's plenty of other things that they can do, that we can do together, but this is part of the process of working together.
And I was going to say, and I think that even in the audience, with the people watching, it wasn't just black people watching the show, it was a mixed, diverse audience that, like you said, if I was from another culture and I'm watching the message, actually I might be like, is this what's going on? Because I might not know. So to see those celebrations, then with a mixed audience, it can only improve.
The football blacklist, let's not make any bones about it. It isn't going to solve every ill within the game. But it's a starting point, it's a positive starting point, and we all know, we're all in this room, we all know it's painfully slow, the progress of our people in the beautiful game. But it's a starting point, it's a really positive one as well. When we sat down many, many moons ago and kicked this about, what was there? Very little.
Well, I agree with Rodney, it was very little, so therefore there is nothing putting that pressure on creating an environment for those uncomfortable conversations. So I totally agree with all the points made. And for me, the significant thing is there are different ways to apply pressure.
Absolutely.
Okay, so there's kick it out, we do it in that way. And there's a football blacklist that is a celebration, it's bringing together the whole footballing community. And in effect, that's putting pressure on in another way. So there are different ways.
Listen, not too long ago, there was an event at Hammersmith Town Hall where we had some legends of the game on the playing field. Really good. Ricky Hill was there, Paul Elliott was there, etc., etc. and they told some horrific stories about how it was for them, real horrific stories. We've moved on from that, thankfully. However, it's still not perfect, you know, and I've taken the time, Neil's taken the time to invite some of those guys that were there to show them, listen, your contribution can be marked as well. So as you said, there are different ways to skin this proverbial cat.
One of the real significant things about the event earlier this year for me was the fact that the energy was right, as you say, Mike. People were able to network in an environment that previously didn't exist, with people that they probably couldn't have reached before. The presence of Ugo Ekiok, you know, and then to lose him, you know, a short while after that, would have been, for a lot of people, the last time they got to see him. So box ticked for the football blacklist, because if that didn't happen, a lot of us wouldn't have been able to shake his hand and truly tell him how much we appreciate his contribution to the game. Are there any plans to mark? Are there any plans for the next football blacklist where Ugo Ekiok's?
I mean, you know, obviously it was you know, very, very sad when Ugo passed away. So shortly after the event, Rodney and I had a chat. We wanted to do something. We wanted to mark his presence within the football blacklist celebration, in the same way that, you know, Keith Alexander was a big supporter of the football blacklist, and, you know, awards are named after him. So Ugo Ekiok had received the Ones to Watch award back in March, and I'm told by his family he was delighted. So he didn't know he was going to pick that award up. He was coming just to show support. He didn't know he was going to.
That's the sort of guy he was. That's the sort of guy he was. Yeah.
So Rodney and I decided, let's name the Ones to Watch awards the Ugo Ekiok Ones to Watch.
A nice touch.
Those will be passed out on the night by his friends and family members who'll be with us, and, you know, we'll also be doing a few other things to mark.
Well, that's my next question, really. What else can we expect from the football blacklist as well as that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we'll pay a special tribute to Ugo Ekiok on the night. We want to celebrate his life. We want to also make a contribution. We're going to ask people, we've got envelopes, black envelopes with the hashtag Do Something Kind, because I don't know if you remember his last tweet.
That was his last tweet.
When he left the football blacklist, he gave a homeless person £20 and said, it felt good, not going to lie. Hashtag Do Something Kind. So we're going to, again, push that message. We're going to encourage people to make a donation if they wish to. If they don't wish to, it's fine. You know, different people have different situations on the night, and that will go towards Ugo's charities. And we'll find out a little bit more about the work that's been going on around Ugo Ekiok's charities from the family on the night.
I mean, staying on that point, obviously his passing shocked us all, genuinely, because obviously we've just seen him in good health.
Yeah. Looked a picture of health.
He was in career mode, moving in the right direction. And just the power of him and the event is what I'm going to give you a little story about. That there were some people that were invited to the FBL celebration who are no real football aficionados, but when they heard that he'd passed, they called me and touched base with me, and you could feel the shock, genuinely. As I said, these people don't know a goalpost from a lamppost in terms of football terms, but because he was there, because of how he came over, that very humble giant sort of thing, they said, Rodney, the guy at your event, we've just seen he's passed. So once again, the synergy that we talked about was in the room, you know. So it's education for everybody, isn't it, in terms of what football can do. You know, so we lost someone really special that night.
No, definitely. Is it getting easier, guys, to host this event? I mean, with this, you mentioned the support of the Premier League. Has that given you more legs? Are more people? Are you garnering more column inches? Are more people aware of the event? Aware of what you're trying to draw attention to? Is it getting easier? Yeah,
I mean, my feeling is having the Premier League support has been massive for the celebration, and thank you to Richard Scudamore, Bill Bush, Alistair Bennett, all the
we got to
guys
give a big shout out
at the Premier League for getting behind this. It's funny, I met a football agent recently and goes, "What? The Premier League supported something called the Blacklist? How did you do that?" And I said, "Well, actually, you know, it's just a question was asked, a conversation was had, and actually they saw it as something very positive in terms of holding up people as role models to encourage others to get involved in the game. So obviously that's been great. If you look on the Football Blacklist website, footballblacklist.com, you know, you've got the badges of the FA, badges of the PFA, who've always been massive supporters, Fair, Kick It Out, you know, had loads and loads of support from across the game. And one kind of thing that doesn't happen so much is when I initially started tweeting about the football blacklist, 3-4 years ago, whatever it was, I would get so many responses. What about the white list? This is racist. I can't believe this is going on. I don't get any of that now. I mean, I've got back to people on a number of occasions to remind them of something called context and history, because that's why the blacklist is relevant. I mean, if there's any white coaches out there who are struggling with getting coaches from white authorities, they need to work that out. They need to work that out. And of course, white coaches won't be getting jobs in the same way black coaches won't be getting jobs. But white coaches wouldn't have faced necessarily hundreds and hundreds of years of racism and issues that the game holds their hands up and say we got this wrong in the past. So it's the context that people are beginning to understand and the positivity in what we can achieve. Danielle Carter is one of our ones to watch. She was named back when we published the blacklist in May. She's coming to the football blacklist celebration as an FA Council member. So we got we got that one right. And we will continue to hold up people who are doing fantastic things and encourage the game to get hold of these people, have conversations, get them involved.
And I think the Premier League's involvement is key. Let's not mess about, because I mean, you put the blacklist to one side, the Premier League is the big daddy, isn't it, in terms of leagues around the world. So to have that relationship with something called the blacklist, it's made people stand up and take notice.
Fantastic.
I mean, the one in March, when people got the invites or you had conversations with people, as you said, the Premier League, it just seemed to take it to another level. And it goes back to what Leon was saying. If we're going to have the conversations with these authorities, right, they can engage with us, to make things better. I mean, we had the Enialuko scenario and the FA recently. Not good, was it? And it basically meant that they continue to do what they do. The scenario of black people in the game is over here still. It needs to come together. I'm sure if Leon or myself or whoever wanted to have a conversation with the AVA about how they can take things forward, would attend that meeting.
Well,
do you know what I mean?
I think what you're pointing out, the two of you are pointing out, is that conversations I've had
with the Premier League, have that conversation.
Action has followed those conversations, and that is a greater understanding between the two entities that are striving for the same goal. And I think that the FA could take a leaf out of the Premier League's book in that regard. Mike, how do you see it improving moving forward? And if there was one element of the game you would like personally, I'm going to ask you all the same question. Personally, you would like to see greater inclusion of black people, whatever area of the game, be it administration, coaching, top level chief execs, whatever. What would you like to see?
Blacklist improving. I think everything that's happening now is good enough anyway, and the natural evolution of it will do its thing. So if it gets Fort Jam and there's too many people in there, a bigger venue. Just simple stuff. I think from that point of view, it's fantastic. Like I said, I've got nothing to say about anything bad about it from being at that one in March. For me, it was perfect. So just growth. In terms of football, probably more black people in higher positions of power, but that will come over time. So it's for me. Do
we wait though, or do we push? Because this is the question, isn't it?
I think we are pushing though, and I think blacklist, kick it out, raise your game. I think all of those things are pushing, and these conversations that we have are doing something. And the people we meet, we have conversations. So for me, it's doing what it's doing. There's only so much pushing and pulling you can do. You've got to change a whole mindset. You're changing a whole generation. There's a lot to do. Right. And it don't happen overnight.
Your key thing you'd like to see, if I said to you, Rodney, this can change in the next couple of years if we devote all of our resources to it.
I think that obviously we always talk about the lack of black managers, and that's valid when there's 92 football clubs, there's 4 managers, etc., etc. I think we shouldn't just concentrate on those figures. For me, I'd like to see the FA with more black staff at a higher level. I'd like to see more black journos in the press box and the mixed zones when we're all doing our work. And it's just invariably us 4 and maybe a couple of others, isn't it? So I would love to see a holistic approach, not just on the football field. I know it's very visible and very high profile, but I'd just like to see all the authorities and all facets of the game, as the blacklist does when it breaks it down from commercial to administration to players to ones to watch. everything comes together. I mean, there's a young lady that does the licenses for all the media, Kelly Williams. She's been doing that forever at Datacom. And I invited her this year, and she's coming, and I'm really excited about that, because she does one of the most powerful jobs in the world. She gives the media their licenses so they can attend Premier League games. But who would know that there's a mature young black woman doing that job, and she's got support from a young man called Oren Bristol. So, you know what I mean? It's there, and that's why the blacklist is so important, to showcase people like that. So I just would love to see, away from the field of play, I'd just like to see everybody, FA, Premier League, etc., just understand that people from our community, once given the opportunity, once given the training, can do the same job.
Leon, I know you're probably going to echo a lot of what's been said, but
I mean, you know, I agree completely with what the guys are saying. I mean, it's competitive, you know, the football blacklist. I mean, as popular as it's made me and Rodney for pulling together the football blacklist and growing it, it's made us unpopular because, well, there are people on it, there are people who aren't on it.
Of course.
And they seem to think that me and Rodney might just be picking people, but actually there's a process where there's judges and we have a call, which is always in the Voice newspaper, a call for people to put forward nominees to then be put to the judges. So there's a process. But obviously, the more and more competitive that list gets, the better it is.
Of course.
And we want new names on there.
Absolutely.
We want new names on that list. We want, you know, younger people,
Yes.
or maybe there's older people who have never been recognised, who need to be more visible. So we want those people to come forward. And also, you know, the diversity within the list. Of course, it's a list about the black community, but, you know, what's going on with black women? You know, we need to make sure we're supporting our sisters in terms of like what they're doing in the game and their visibility. You know, there's people who are disabled who are doing things. You know, we can't see disabled football as something separate to mainstream football. You know, this is all football. This is all our community, and we need to, when we're making calls for nominations, maybe get the word out even wider somehow. And then, you know, when we're speaking to the judges, ensure that they do understand that diversity of the list is absolutely key. We can't talk to the football industry about diversity if we don't get it right ourselves as a community. So we need to think about that. But I'm really pleased with the progress that we've made. And maybe as a third thing, is maybe what we do after the football blacklist. We have this great celebration, and then we have the publication of the list. There's a big space in there where we can be doing, you know, seminars of young people, bringing these young people together. Outreach projects, making better use of our website, so it's a resource for, again, young people. For me, you know, if I had seen the football blacklist as a young kid, you know, in Green Lane, Haringey, you know, I mean, I don't know, maybe I would have accelerated further than I have right now in my career, and maybe, you know, that's...
Just the notion that you can do it is...
Yeah, I just didn't think, I mean, I thought, you know, how... Getting involved in football. Well, no, I'm not as good as a footballer as I thought I was. You know, journalists. Don't see any black journalists. Certainly don't see any black business people in football who are visible. So where is there a space for me? And I'm sure there are people sat at home thinking the same thing. And I'm fed up of speaking to these young guys from our community who are saying, "Oh, I'm going to be a footballer and I don't have a plan B." No, sort this out. And any parents watching, please encourage your kids. Go for it. Try and become a professional footballer, but also let's have that plan B in place. Let's you know, have a focus on education where possible, or whatever areas, to ensure that if you don't become a player, I want to see you as a physio, as a lawyer. I want to see you doing different things in the game. I don't want you just to be lost to football. We've got to make sure we address that, and obviously that only works if there's opportunities.
That's right.
So people like ourselves have to keep knocking at the door of all the football authorities to make sure that if you're encouraging people to come forward, make sure that door opens. You know, make sure we know where the key is and we can open it, because otherwise you're going to build frustration out there and it's going to be counterproductive.
Don't hide the key.
And the young people's angle is important, because I've tried to do my invites slightly differently this year, where I want to try and get some of the same said people that you're talking about to come into an environment, and we talked about the synergy, whereby if you're at, say, 6, 7 out of 10 with your ambitions and your plan, you could come potentially to a blacklist, and then you could be 9 or 10 out of 10 because you've met someone, you've heard something, you've seen the success in the room. You know, that's why I think it's a wonderful conduit for people to say, you know what, that was a great night, and I now want to move forward. Or I've got Leon's number, I've got your number. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
and that's how it's about. That's what it's all about.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. If you haven't been, hopefully these guys will send you an invite.
Don't start with that, man. This week has been a nightmare. But yes,
Thanks for that.
We do want to we want it to be bigger and better and get more of the community involved. Absolutely,
Incremental growth.
absolutely.
Incremental growth. You can only handle what you can handle. Well, listen, guys, I'm looking forward to it. We'll cover it. We'll be back next week to give everybody the highlights of this year's event, and I'm sure it will continue to grow. So continue growth to all involved. Be remiss of me to end this week's podcast without talking about one significant occurrence in sport that happened last weekend, namely Lewis Hamilton becoming the greatest Formula One driver in the history of this country.
Yeah.
Michael, I'm going to start with you because you've been putting this debate out on your social media platforms, nothing.com if you don't know. Should Lewis Hamilton be knighted? Straight question for everybody here.
Yes, of course he should, purely and simply because he is the most successful British driver ever. Simple.
Rodney?
Yeah, without doubt, and he will be. Maybe
Rodney, you talk like you know them, Rodney.
No,
No, he's got deadlifts.
He will be. There will be a clamour because he's got 4 titles now, and listening to him, he's not done yet. So it's going to happen.
So it's on the next list?
I don't know if it's on the next list, but whatever he needs to do, whatever is going to happen, he's going to be Sir Lewis at some stage. And I just want to say one thing. We know his story. You've interviewed him several times since he's taken up that F1 seat. We've spoken to him before that as well.
Spoke to him at the beginning of this season.
Yeah, and all I would say is, if people really want to understand what he's achieved, you have to understand that, you know, his dad had to do several thousand jobs just to make sure that he could pay for the karting bill so his son could fulfill the dream. From Stevenage to Buckingham Palace, that's what I'm really saying.
Leon, what are your thoughts on a knighthood? Inevitable.
Yeah, quite simply, it's a yes from me, you know, to do the X Factor thing. And to put it in context, I don't drive, I don't ride a bike, I don't watch a great deal of F1, but I admire Lewis Hamilton. Of course I know about the Mansells, the Prosts, etc. That's part of this country's kind of, you know, history, F1 being on the BBC with the theme music, etc. But Lewis Hamilton, of course, you know, comes on the scene, this young man, this young black guy, it's like, well, hang on, what's going on here? And then he just absolutely tears it up. And then, you know, the twists and turns along the journey, it's phenomenal what he's achieved.
Tremendously inspiring. I mean, Lewis, when you watch this, because we know you will, and Mr. Hamilton, and actually Mrs. Hamilton, you know, the mum as well. I think you've all done a great job to manage to guide this young man to this point, and obviously his talent has brought him to the fore of the sport. So from all of us at the Global Sport in Colour Sports Magazine show, we salute. That's that for this week. We'll be back next week. Thanks a lot, guys. I'm looking forward to seeing what happened at the Football Blacklist. Until then,
it's going to be good.
See you then.